I always thought my family's love was unbreakable until one night tore it apart. My sister-in-law whispered a truth I can't forget. Now I see lies in every smile. My name is Hannah Mills, a 34-year-old nurse from Ohio. I fix broken bodies every day, but I never knew how to fix a broken past. This time, I'm not healing. I'm hunting for the truth. The reunion photograph. The summer air hummed with laughter as I walked into my parents' backyard. The scent of grilled chicken and old wine mixed with freshly cut grass. The annual Mills family reunion, loud, messy, and always a little too perfect. My brother, Daniel, stood near the oak tree with his wife, Amy. Their smiles looked rehearsed. "Come stand with us, Hannah," Mom called, waving her camera. I joined them reluctantly. As I leaned in, I felt Amy's eyes on me, sharp, watchful, uncomfortable. She shifted slightly as Daniel's hand lingered too long on her shoulder. It wasn't affection, it was possession. The click of the camera shutter froze that moment, but the silence afterward unsettled me. Amy's glass slipped from her grip, shattering across the patio. Wine stained her white dress. For a second, our mother gasped. Our father cursed, and Daniel rushed to her side. But when Amy looked up, she wasn't embarrassed. She looked afraid. Her gaze darted toward me, then to my brother. I wondered if I had imagined it. The tremble in her hands, the way she mouthed something I couldn't catch. The photo would appear perfect later, 5 smiling faces under the golden light. But I knew better. I could feel the tension coiling beneath our laughter, something dark hiding in the corners of that sunny afternoon. I didn't know it then, but that picture would become a scar on our family. That night, I stared at the photograph on my phone. Everyone looked happy, but me. My smile faltered halfway, like I had already felt the crack forming in our family's shell. I zoomed in on Daniel's hand, tensed fingers pressing into Amy's arm. And then I saw it. Her distant stare wasn't toward him, it was at me. That was the moment my piece began to unravel, the whisper in the kitchen. The dishes clattered softly in the sink as I walked into the kitchen the next morning. My head still throbbed from the wine, and I wanted coffee before facing anyone. That was when I heard them, low voices tucked between the hum of the refrigerator. "She doesn't know," Amy's whisper trembled. "You promised, Daniel." "I said I'd handle it," he hissed back. "Don't ruin this." My name hung somewhere in the air like smoke. My stomach dropped. I leaned closer to the doorway, heart pounding. "You can't keep it secret forever," Amy said. "She deserves to—" Footsteps. I stepped back too late. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his face startled, eyes sharp as knives. "Morning, Hannah. Coffee?" I forced a smile. "Sure." My voice betrayed me. It cracked on the single syllable. Amy slipped out behind him, not meeting my eyes. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the air too heavy. I watched Daniel's hands move, steady, calm, practiced, pouring coffee as if he hadn't just been caught hiding something. That whisper followed me all day. "She doesn't know." It banged against my chest each time Daniel laughed or Amy smiled. They'd been married for 8 years, but something had shifted. That night, as I brushed my teeth, I heard their bedroom door close down the hall. A muffled argument began. Amy's tearful voice, Daniel's harsh tone. I pressed my ear to the wall, hearing nothing distinct except my name again and again. By morning, Amy would barely look at me. Daniel pretended too well. I smiled through breakfast, pretending I hadn't heard anything. But deep down, I knew the truth was waiting, just out of sight. Whispering behind the next door I dared to open, the hidden letter. 2 days after the reunion, I was gathering laundry from the guest room when something slipped from Daniel's coat pocket. A folded letter, yellowed and creased. Curiosity tugged harder than caution. The handwriting stopped me cold. Mom's, her perfect loops, always neat even when angry. I sat on the bed and unfolded it. "Daniel, you must never tell Hannah. It would destroy her." My hands shook. I read it again, slower this time. The date was from 15 years ago. My chest tightened. Destroy me? What secret could break me like that? The letter mentioned money, hospitals, and a name crossed out in thick ink. I thought of my job at the hospital, the faces I'd seen, and something in me twisted. Why did this sound connected to us? Mom's voice echoed from downstairs, calling for dinner. I slipped the letter back into the coat and forced myself to breathe normally. That night, while everyone slept, I returned for it. The paper felt heavier under my flashlight. There were tear marks near the edges, the words, "She can never know," underlined twice. I took pictures with my phone, each click sounding like betrayal. When I heard the stairs creak, I froze. Daniel's shadow swept across the hallway. I hid behind the door. He entered, rummaged through his coat, and sighed when he didn't find the letter. His whisper sent chills down my spine. "Mom, you better be right. She can't ever know." As he left, I pressed my hand to my chest. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own brother, the family lies. Everything changed after that letter. I couldn't look at my parents without seeing questions. My father's eyes darted away whenever I mentioned Daniel. My mother's smile trembled like a cracked mask. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked one evening, her hands kneading dough as she never intended to bake. "Fine," I lied. "Just tired from work." She nodded too quickly. My father stood behind her, pretending to read the newspaper, though it was upside down. I saw through them both. That night, I started recording our dinners. The small silver recorder fit in my pocket easily. The first few nights, it caught nothing but normal conversation, weather, work, neighbors. Then on Friday, my mother said quietly, "We can't let her find out." My heart stopped. My father muttered something about protecting her, about how the truth was too cruel. When I listened later, the words bit into me like frost. They sounded less like parents and more like wardens. Days passed with tension thick as fog. Daniel avoided me entirely. Amy looked sick with guilt. She dropped her groceries once in the driveway when our eyes met. By the weekend, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I reviewed the recordings every night, hoping for clarity, but all I heard were lies wrapped in love. One evening, I whispered to myself in the dark, maybe truth hurts less than lies. But deep down, I didn't believe it. The hospital file. It was a late shift. The ER buzzed with exhaustion when I logged into the patient records. I wasn't looking for trouble, just checking reports. Still, one name froze me mid-click. Daniel Mills. The file was buried under old entries. My brother's name shouldn't be there. I hesitated, then opened it. Same birth date, same emergency contact, Mom. But under blood type, something didn't fit. His was AB, mine O+. Mom always said we matched. Worse, the note at the bottom. Patient connected to infant record number 239A. I clicked it. It required an admin code. I didn't have one. My pulse raced. After my shift, I snuck into the records room, locking the door behind me. The admin terminal blinked softly. The code, Mom's birthday, worked. The file opened. I stared at medical forms dated 34 years ago. It listed Hannah. Infant placed in care of Dr. Mills. Adoption process sealed by request. Adoption. My throat closed. Next to it, handwritten initials. MM, my mother's. I was not my parents' biological daughter, but Daniel was. I sank to the cold floor, unable to breathe. My family had never protected me. They'd hidden me, but why? And what did Amy know? I left the hospital before dawn, gripping printouts I wasn't supposed to have. My entire life had just been rewritten in black ink, the old diary. The next morning, I drove to my mother's house with the hospital file tucked inside my bag. She greeted me with her usual soft voice, but I noticed the tremor in her hands. I followed her into the kitchen, where sunlight slid through the curtains like thin blades. I wanted to scream, to show her the papers, but instead, I smiled. "Mom, do we still have those old photo albums?" She hesitated, then pointed toward the attic. "In the trunk with your grandmother's things." In the dusty attic, cobwebs hung like old ghosts. I opened the trunk and found faded albums, brittle letters, and beneath them a small leather-bound diary. It wasn't labeled, but I knew my mother's handwriting instantly. My heart pounded as I read the first line. "I never wanted to lie, but he made me." The entries were from 35 years ago. She wrote about a woman named Evelyn who had a baby girl out of wedlock. My father, then a young doctor, had helped deliver the baby, and they adopted her secretly. "We couldn't have children of our own after Daniel," one entry said. "She will be ours now." That baby was me. Tears blurred the ink. Each page peeled away another truth. My father's name appeared again. Angry, controlling, determined to erase Evelyn from history. Then there was something else. A single line that froze my blood. "If Hannah ever learns what Daniel did, she will never forgive him." What Daniel did? I turned the pages faster, but they ended abruptly. The last one was torn out. I heard footsteps downstairs. I shoved the diary into my bag and crept back to the door. From the hall, my mother's voice called softly, "Hannah, you shouldn't be up there." I didn't answer. As I drove home, I replayed her words from years ago. Family protects each other. But all I could think now was, from what? The midnight visit. By midnight, the storm outside had started, heavy rain hitting the windshield as I drove to Daniel's house. My hands clutched the wheel so tight they hurt. Amy's text had been short. "We need to talk. Come alone." When I arrived, she stood on the porch in her robe, her eyes swollen from crying. Daniel's truck wasn't there. "You're not going to like this," she said quietly, leading me inside. The living room smelled faintly of alcohol and burnt candles. A framed copy of the reunion photo sat crooked on the side table. I wanted to smash it. Amy's hands trembled as she held something out. An old flash drive. He kept everything. I don't know why. Maybe guilt, maybe control. I plugged it into her laptop, folders opened, emails, letters, even voice recordings. One dated from 15 years ago caught my eye. A woman's voice spoke first, broken, pleading. "Please, don't take my baby again." My father's voice followed, calm and cold. "You signed the papers, Evelyn. It's done." Amy covered her mouth. "Evelyn," I whispered. "My mother." "No," Amy said shakily. "Evelyn is mine. She was my aunt. Daniel knew. He told me after we married, said I was marrying into the family that stole her child. He said it was only fair to keep quiet." I staggered back. "He knew who I was?" She nodded, tears streaming. "You were family to me before I even met you. But he used that truth to control me. He said your real mother was unstable, that you were better off not knowing." The recording clicked off. Silence swallowed the room. "Why now?" I asked. Amy swallowed hard. "Because he hit me last night. Because I'm done protecting his lies." The storm thundered outside as her confession burned in my ears. Every lie, every whisper, it all led to this, the secret child. Amy's hands were shaking when she opened the envelope on the kitchen table. "You need to see this," she whispered. I took a breath before looking inside. A photograph lay on top. A boy, maybe 10 years old, with Daniel's sharp jawline and my gray eyes. My knees went weak. Who is this?" Amy looked away. "Evelyn's grandson. He was raised by my cousin after Evelyn died, but Hannah, he's yours by blood." The room spun. "That's impossible." She held out a folded birth record. It listed me as the biological mother. My name written clearly. I felt air leave my lungs. My mind clawed for reason. Amy explained between sobs. Daniel had forced my mother to forge hospital records after a medical accident years ago. They took my child, my baby, away, claiming he was stillborn. He told Amy they could fix what his parents started. I had been a child nurse then, vulnerable after a trauma the family never discussed. I sank into a chair, shaking. "All this time, I thought I couldn't have children." Amy's tears mixed with mine. "He said he was protecting you, but he was protecting himself from what he did." Lightning flashed across the window, illuminating the photo. That boy's smile hit me like sunlight through fog. Every lie snapped into focus. I didn't remember much of that night after, the drive home, the rain blurring my vision, the scream caught in my throat. I only knew one thing now. I was done being silent. The family confrontation. The next morning, I called everyone to my parents' house. My voice was calm, deliberate. "I have something to show you." They gathered in the living room. Daniel sat stiffly beside Amy, who wouldn't look at him. My parents exchanged nervous glances. I placed the photo of the child on the table, next to the hospital files and my mother's diary. "Tell me who he is." No one spoke. Only the ticking clock dared to move. Finally, Amy broke. "He's Hannah's son. You all knew." My mother began to cry. My father lowered his face into his hands. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he muttered. "Like what?" I snapped. "Stealing a baby? Lying my whole life?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "You were weak. You couldn't handle it. He would have ruined you." "Ruined me?" I shouted, standing. "You ruined everything!" The screaming blurred together, Amy sobbing, my mother begging, my father yelling that he'd done what was right. I stood there, shaking, tears burning my face. "This family is built on ashes," I whispered, "but I'm done breathing your smoke." I gathered the papers and walked out. Behind me, I heard my father shout for me to come back. Daniel curse, Amy's cry following me down the hall. Outside, the wind carried the cold November air. I felt something in me finally break, but it wasn't pain. It was release, the burning house. 2 nights later, I returned to that same house. I wanted closure, nothing more. The emptiness inside glowed like a second heartbeat. The windows were dark, except for the living room's faint light. A candle flickered near the old photograph from the reunion. My fingers brushed against its frame before I dropped it on the floor. There were gasoline containers stacked in the garage. Daniel's, from his tool shed. I opened one and carried it inside. I don't know what I was thinking. Anger, justice, despair, maybe all of it. I splashed the fuel across the carpets, the drapes, the worn family sofa where we had laughed too many false laughs. Then I paused in front of the fireplace, struck a match, and threw it in. The fire caught like truth unleashed. Orange light raced up the walls, swallowing furniture and memories alike. I stood by the doorway, feeling the heat kiss my face. No one was home. No one would be hurt. But everything built on lies would burn. When firefighters arrived later, they called it an accident. I said nothing. I just watched the smoke curl into the night sky, taking every secret with it. A week later, I visited a small playground on the edge of town. A boy played on the swing, my son. I couldn't tell him who I was yet, but I watched him laugh in the sunlight, free and innocent. Some families heal with truth. Mine needed fire, and for the first time, I finally felt clean.